Okay, how to engage a customer? Well, that's probably the key thing to all selling, right? It's the number one, engaging the customer at the beginning. So quite often I'm brought into a business and I'm asked, can you get the conversion rates up in our sales team? And 9 times out of 10, I say it's really not about closing the customer. It's about asking the right questions at the beginning, building the rapport. These types of things are critical in the sales process, as we know. However, every day I see sales professionals, people that have even been doing selling for a long time, go through that part very quickly and then find themselves having challenges at the end in converting or getting that customer engagement. An example of this is I got a call only a few weeks ago from a salesperson, and she jumped on the phone and she started pitching to me very quickly about what her company does and what products they are and how great those products would be for me. And then after about 5 or 10 minutes of spray, she certainly then asked me, how's that sound? Is it something of interest? And then I went on to inform her that actually it doesn't probably sound like of anything of interest because I don't actually do that as an occupation anymore. So kind of missed the mark right in the beginning, but there was opportunities for her during the call, but she just didn't ask the right questions. So again, we speed through this very quickly, unfortunately. Sometimes it comes from a place of nerves, sometimes it comes from a place of time pressures or other. They're just enthusiastic and they want to move through the process very quickly and get that customer engaged. When I'm training teams and individuals, there's a scenario I play with them. I say, like, if you walked out of the office today and you're in the middle of the city and you walked up to a random person and said to them, will you marry me? What do you think the chance or the probability of a yes would be? And you get varied responses, but the messaging behind it would be, well, probably not a high uptake or a high acceptance. And then we talk about, well, why is that? And it's normally because it's an unknown person that's approaching them. There's no rapport, there's no relationship, there's no connectivity. So very unlikely you're going to get that engagement at the first call. So I then turn it and say, well, why in sales do we expect that we're going to get a high level of engagement in that first call and transaction? Now, I do know it's different to what your role is or what type of products you're selling. Some are transactional, and it is a case that you're going to get a first call resolution. But in this particular video, I'm going to talk about building long-term relationships with repeat customers, so just to put it in context for you. So the whole point is to slow it down and be prepared. So when making a first call, if you want to elevate that engagement, this is what the steps I encourage people to undertake. First of all, plan your call or plan your interaction. Take a moment to pause before, do your research, either pop online, Google or whatever other platforms you have available to you to do a bit of research on the individual first, or the person you're calling, a bit about their business, maybe on their website and about us, and look for common content that you can actually open up a conversation with. It may be somewhere they used to work, it may be how long their business has been operating, it may be something specifically what they do. So look for those commonalities that you can kind of then document, and then that can be a leading conversation. The second tip I always say is, like, write down 3 to 5 questions you can ask that customer, open-ended questions, to help that engagement. And the open-ended questions are questions that, with a response, you're not going to get just a yes or a no. It's going to be more of it. For an example, I might say, can you just tell me a little bit about your business? So it's not going to be yes or no. They go, oh, look, this is what we do. This is the areas we work within. The other one may be, what are your common challenges across your industry at the moment? Or it may be, what challenges you feel there may be ahead in the next 12 months, or flip it around and say, what opportunities do you think there are in your market in the next 12 months? What would you like more of? What would you like less of? Things like that. So what I'm doing when I'm having those conversations is, I use this in a lot of my training. I've got these little magnetic dot points. They sit on my desk and I'll table 3 to 5 of them every time I get a response. And what I'm looking at is I'm looking about what they're telling me to how that's going to align with what I can offer them. And then once I've got 3 to 5 kind of alignments, that's when I'll move through to talking a little bit about what I do or what products or services I represent, not before. If I don't have 3 to 5, I'll just keep on asking a few more open-ended questions to understand truly what's important to the customer right now so I can get that engagement. So slow it down and again, do your research at the beginning, and then we go through to aligning with those planned questions. And those questions may differ depending on the type of call you're making or interaction. They're going to differ, for example, if it's an unknown customer and you're not known to them. They'll differ if it's a repeat customer. If it's a customer that's doing business with you ongoing, you're not going to ask probably some of the questions. And it may differ for a customer that you've disengaged with you, that you've lost over time, that you want to re-engage. Again, the key is to have the same questions with those type of calls every time you're going to make them. So, there'd be an example where it may be a customer that's disengaged with you, and you might just look at what was your last interaction, for example. That might be one of your first questions. Look, Mr. Customer or Mrs. Customer, you interacted with us back in 2018, and the customer was A, B, and C. Why did you choose to use our services? Again, it's an open-ended question. It creates that dialogue backwards to you, and then you can kind of start moving from there. The key is slow it down again, and don't try to rush that initial questioning part. That's what builds engagement. Often, if you speed through that stage too early, and I see it sometimes when a customer gets a little bit of positivity from the customer, that goes right bang, and then starts presenting their product or their solutions to the customer. Then it gets to get a commitment at the end, and the customer goes, "Oh, okay, just leave it with me, or can you email me something through," something like that. And then you see the salesperson trying to go back in the process to kind of understand there might be something underlying, what I call under the iceberg. So it's about asking good questions to get under that iceberg and engage with the customer. If you don't have the engagement and you feel that there's something that's underlying, be comfortable with objections. You actually need objections to engage a customer. So you want to know what's holding them back or what they dislike about your product. Many years ago, I launched a new finance product out to market. It was in a professional environment. I had a room full of finance brokers, and you could just see there was a lack of engagement. We got through a few slides on the presentation, and everyone was polite, of course. And then I brought up the pricing slide, rates, things like that. Again, not much engagement, but I could tell just by body language there was a few things holding them back. So I backtracked and went back to that slide, and I said, "It's expensive, isn't it?" And you could see the room like, "Oh my God, the salesperson's even telling us it's expensive." Why? Who is this guy, right? He's agreeing with us. So I said, "Well, what is it?" I said, what other options could you get at a better rate? And then they started talking about different types of lenders. They talked about the main 4 banks, as what rates were out there in market. This is prior to GFC, and so there was plenty of low-doc options out there. And so it really opened up the room. And then I asked for more. I actually encouraged more objections. And the reason is it created the atmosphere in the room. They were all starting to share and talk. And then when we got into that conversation about rate, and I said, "Okay, you've told me that you can kind of get this rate from the bank, and what type of customer would the bank want to give that rate to?" So then they profiled the customer for me, and I said, "And what about the customer that doesn't fit that profile? What would you do then?" And then that's when it led us back to what we offer, because we're a non-bank lender, and it's specified kind of we had a different appetite for lending. So the rates were different, but you're comparing it to something that's not obtainable for that particular type of profile of client. So This is where you've got to bring out objections if you're not getting that engagement. So be comfortable with it. If you're not getting objections, generally, there's stuff under the iceberg that might be hiding there. Not in all cases, but just be wary of it. My last bit of information I was going to share with you, with those types of interactions you're making, whether it's for a new customer or existing or a previous client, be consistent with your open-ended questions. I was asked to do some consulting with a phone-based company, and I was listening to the phone calls, and they were talking about they were struggling getting conversion to kind of commit. And I was a bit puzzled initially because I was listening to the conversations and I was like, these are really good questions. They're actually asking open, good, engaging questions of a customer, and the customer was interacting good. And then it would get lost in a bit of a process. So just when it got to that commitment stage, what I discovered at that stage was that the salesperson was not using the same questions as they would in every call. So what happens there is they get lost in where's my next go-to. So normally if you build a structure into your sales process and you're asking really good quality questions and getting that engagement, you automatically lead into the next part of your sales process. But if you change those questions ad hoc, generally you can get lost in the part of the process, where do I go next? So just a bit of a tip there as well. So it's a little bit about engagement customers. If you'd like to engage more of your customers this year, there are some certain techniques you can use. We're in a different market environment over the last couple of years. So one thing I'm coaching other sales teams on is being adaptable to that and not using the same sales process that you may have used before the COVID world hit us, and adapting new methodologies into that. So if you'd like more tips on that for yourself or your team, please reach out to me, and I'd be happy to share with you and talk about some of the content we can cover. So that next session that we'll talk about is handling objections and how to overcome objections. It's a great session. It's again one thing that a salesperson, if they're comfortable with objections, it makes their role a lot more easier and a lot less stress. Have a great day and happy selling.